Today we're going to be reading Helen Keller, The Story of My Life. We're reading chapter 12. They had just gotten back. Helen described the adventure she had when she was walking on the train bridge and the train came by and they had to go down to the bridge. Chapter 12. Helen Keller, Story of My Life. After my first visit to Boston, I spent almost every winter in the north. Once I went on a visit to a New England village with its frozen lakes and vast snowfields. It was then that I had opportunities such as I had never had been mine to enter in the treasures of the snow. I recall my surprise on discovering that a mysterious hand had stripped the trees and bushes, leaving only here and there a wrinkled leaf. The birds had flown, and their empty nests in the bare trees were filled with snow. Winter was on hill and field. The earth seemed benumbed by his icy touch, and the very spirits of the trees had withdrawn to their roots, and there, curled up in the dark, lay fast asleep. All life seemed to have ebbed away, and even when the sun shone, the day was shrunk and cold, as if her veins were sapless and old, and she rose up decrepitly for a last dim look at earth and sea. The withered grass and the bushes were transformed into a forest of icicles. Then came a day when the chill air portended a snowstorm. We rushed out of doors to feel the first few tiny flakes descending. Hour by hour the flakes dropped silently, softly from the airy heights of the earth, and the country became more and more level. A snowy night closed upon the world, and in the morning one could scarcely recognize a feature of the landscape. All the roads were hidden, not a single landmark was visible, only a waste of snow with trees rising out of it. In the evening a wind from the northeast sprang up, and the flakes rushed and hither and thither in the furious melee. Around the great fire we sat and told merry tales and frolicked, and quite forgot that we were in the midst of a destitute solitude. Shut in from all communication with the outside world, but during the night the fury of the wind increased to such a degree that it thrilled us with a vague terror. The rafters creaked and strained, and the branches of the trees surrounding the house rattled and beat against the windows, as the winds rioted up and down the country. On the third day after the beginning of the snowstorm ceased, the sun broke through the clouds and shone upon a vast, undulating white plain. High mounds, pyramids, heaped in fantastic shapes, and impenetrable drifts lay scattered in every direction. Narrow paths were shoveled through the drifts. I put on my cloak and hood and went out. The air stung my cheeks like fire. Half walking in the paths, half working our way through the lesser drifts, we succeeded in reaching a pine grove just outside a broad pasture. The trees stood motionless and white like figures in a marble frieze. There was no odor of pine needles. The rays of the sun fell upon the trees so that the twigs sparkled like diamonds and dropped in showers when we touched them. So dazzling was the light, it penetrated even the darkness that veils my eyes. You can forget that she's deaf and blind, because she's just so descriptive with everything. As the days wore on, the drifts gradually shrunk, but before they were wholly gone, another storm came, so that I scarcely felt the earth under my feet once all winter. At intervals the trees lost their icy covering, and the bulrushes and underbrush were bare, but the lake lay frozen and hard beneath the sun. Our favorite amusement during the winter was tobogganing. In places the shore of the lake rises abruptly from the water's edge. Down these steep slopes we used to coast. We would get on our toboggan, a boy would give us a shove, and off we went. Plunging through drifts, leaping hollows, swooping down upon the lake, we would shoot across its gleaming surface to the opposite bank. What joy! What exhilarating madness! For one wild, glad moment, we snapped the chain that binds us to the earth, and joining hands with the winds, we felt ourselves divine. Wow, that's really deep. Her descriptive of riding of a toboggan, I guess a snow sled is a toboggan, and she's deaf and blind. It's a lot more than, what you would picture a deaf and blind kid on a snow sled, like, no, she's really understanding and taking a lot of it in. This book right here, Helen Keller, The Story of My Life, it's one of the best autobiographies ever written, and it was written by somebody who's deaf and blind. This book is way better than my autobiography. I describe a winter storm in my autobiography, and it was 3 days as well, but I don't do it nearly as well as she did, or it's descriptive. But we are in a different time period, so I'm not going to write a modern day snowstorm in a city and describe it like this. But it's really beautiful, exquisite writing. I don't know how much came from her, and she obviously had some help with her teacher and her editors and stuff. But this is a really great book, and that chapter 12, is one of the most wonderfully written chapters in American writing.